Okay, here we go. We'll call this regular city council meeting for the Palmer City Council to order on January 14th, 2025 at 6 o'clock. Before we begin, council members, please put away your cell phones. Speaking of, if you have any personal business to take care of during the meeting, please request a recess. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Here.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Mayor Carrington.
Here.
Councilmember Graver.
Here.
Councilmember Best.
Here.
Councilmember Cooper.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Here.
All here.
All right, and if everyone could stand, and we'll ask Travis to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next is approval of the agenda. And there's a consent agenda with 4 items. Should I list those? In the consent agenda, there's action memorandum number 25-004, authorizing the city manager to execute a management services agreement, amendment number 4 with Eagle Golf Course Management, Inc. for the operation of the Palmer Municipal Golf Course in the amount of $425,000 to reflect the 2025 payments. Second one is 25-003, authorizing the city manager to execute contract amendment number 3 with Green Garden Services for seasonal gardening horticultural services at the Visitor Information Center Garden for 2025 in an amount not to exceed $48,540. And action memorandum number 25-008, authorizing the interim city manager to sign contract amendment number 2 with the Palmer Museum of History and Art for a management service contract agreement for the operation of the Visitor Information Center in the amount of $76,993 to reflect 2025 payments. And action memorandum number 25-011, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for a school resource officer program memorandum of agreement for a 5-year contract for student resource officer services at Palmer High School and Palmer Junior Middle School. So what's the wishes of the council for the agenda?
Move to approve.
Okay, it's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Yes. Oh, okay, Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to request that A, B, and C be removed from the consent agenda for discussion for the council, please.
Okay, and let's see, would that normally go into action memorandum, I guess? Is that what they all are?
At the end of those.
At the end of those, okay. Okay, and do we need a second on that as well? Okay, is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Yeah, Councilmember Cooper. So that's A, B, and C, the first 3 to move, to pull from the consent agenda and put it into the end of the action memoranda section.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember
I would like
Cooper.
to remove action item number O, the executive session about the library, unless and move it to next meeting. And the reason behind that is currently our city attorney contract is expired December 31st, and I'm not sure whether she needs to be involved in that discussion. And maybe the city manager can handle that discussion because it is only a discussion. But if it requires the city attorney to be there, then I'd like to have it moved because she no longer actually is a city employee.
Okay, and that's a request to, yeah, but we also already have a motion on the floor, right?
Well, his motion was to remove O, so he needs a second.
Okay,
That's where we're at, I believe.
well, we haven't voted on the first motion, the consent agenda. So we need to take care of that first. Oh, all modifications, okay. All right, so that was moved. Is there a second?
Second for discussion purposes.
Okay. And that was to move 01 to the next meeting of January 28th? Correct?
Yes. Unless, like say, I guess, I don't know if the council can approve, I'm not sure the council can approve an extension at this point without having it announced in the papers and stuff, and,
Okay. Councilmember Alcantra?
First off, I'm a little problem hearing Councilmember Cooper, so get a little closer to that microphone for my old ears over here. Thirdly, I guess, pretty minor thing, but I need to move or at least do a correction on the minutes of November 26th. So that would be 2C. And I can do that whenever it's appropriate.
What, Madam Clerk, do you want to?
Is it a minor change?
Yeah, just a grammatical correction.
Can you tell me the page?
71. It's just the main motion, directing the city manager to cease, desist, and cut off all communications. Yeah, don't worry. If there's a typo in anything, I'll be the one to find it, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, tonight we have on the agenda the clerk's review, which gave the clerk ample time to prepare a statement that was emailed to us, and for people to be here in the audience that are prepared for that. So to ask a review to come forward in front of the council that our city attorney has not had time to prepare a statement for, has not had time to prepare for, I could understand calling a special meeting for this week, which we could initiate, but to strike out another executive session from the agenda when people are in the audience prepared to do that executive session, to then bring forward another executive session based on something that people haven't prepared for, I think is just very inappropriate. Thank you.
Okay. So we have 1 minute's correction and,
That's just limited
and
typo.
then 3 consent agenda items to move, as well as whatever it was, 01. All right, is there any more discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember
Could
Alcantra.
I have Councilmember Cooper kind of restate what his, is it to remove 01? Is that what I thought I heard, or what are we voting on at this
it was just to move it, and my comment was, if it needed any input from that, our current attorney is no longer under contract, so we really don't have a city attorney at this point. My concern was if it required city attorney input, then we should move it until we approve her contract. But if it doesn't, if we only need to have the city manager and the finance director discuss this issue, then we can move forward with that.
So I think the technical term would be, he's trying to postpone it until the 28th. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember
Was
Alcantra.
I asleep at the switch? Our city attorney is here. Did her contract expire December 31st, or what did I miss on this?
Madam Attorney.
Somebody could answer that for me.
I believe that, so this was a question that the city manager reached out to me about this week, that my, it was up, it's up for review annually, and the date is that it extends every December 31st. So that part is accurate. I was under the impression that my review was being scheduled for this month and that we would maintain the current terms of the contract until the performance review, at which time you can deny, amend, or cancel. But if it is the council's interpretation of that my contract is done until there's a performance review, then I should not be here. Then I would, and you don't want me here, I will leave.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was gonna
kind of echo what our city attorney said. My understanding was that we were postponing it, not with the intention of canceling anything or making any kind of motion or move anything in the contract, but we were postponing that contract review. And so the intent was that things would stay as is until that date. But I could be wrong, and I'm not sure if we would be able to get some sort of verbal, if you're okay, being here without an active contract, or, that's, I'm a little unsure about that matter. But my understanding was that we were going to continue things as is until your review. Thank you.
Madam Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. That was my understanding too. They would just maintain as is, that I did in writing, channel to the city manager that it would just maintain until the review, and then at which point it would be before the public and the council will make a determination, since there was a delay in scheduling it.
Councilmember Cooper?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess that begets the question, does the city manager have the ability to extend the contract without council approval? I don't have a problem with our city attorney being here. I just want to make sure that we're all legal and above board and that we don't get caught in a bind somewhere.
Councilmember Best?
How are other contracts handled?
Well, the contracts for the manager, attorney, and clerk are distinct, I guess would be the word I was thinking. I don't know. Madam Attorney?
They are distinct, but any, so I guess that, I'm a little looped in on that. So traditionally, we have terms that we agreed on. There was a review that was due before the 31st. And so my understanding is it's maintained. It wasn't an approval of a contract. It was just the timing scheduled by the city managers that I'd maintain in this capacity until the January 28th, at which time council would make a determination. There is an element in, I don't have the contract right before me, but there is the element that they are renewed annually or twice or every 2 years if needed, depending at the council's discretion. So.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to bring forward a vote for objection to consideration immediately.
Okay, so this is to object to the, what's the objection to?
To the consideration that Mr. Cooper made to not carry on with this meeting. I object to the consideration, and that means that we immediately vote. It does not take a second. It takes a council vote immediately. And I can interrupt the objection for that. Thank you.
All right, but I'm still trying to understand. So we're objecting to the motion to adopt the agenda? Is that what I'm following?
I'm objecting to the consideration of changing the executive sessions that were planned today, that the change that was put in front of us by Councilman Cooper to change the executive sessions around today. That was not prepared before, that was not brought to us before, and respectfully, Mr. Mayor, if the city attorney's contract was going to expire, that was something that you should have noticed and brought before this council, as you are in charge, the head of this council, and what is brought before us in the agenda by the clerk and the city manager. So if that was skipped over, changing the agenda now to add in an executive session for somebody's review who had no time to prepare is completely inappropriate. So I object to the motion, and I move that we vote on that immediately. Thank you.
So Madam Clerk, is that,
I'm at need a recess. I'm not familiar with that motion.
okay. I guess I'm trying to understand if you.
Maybe we can make
part
it
of the
easier that
agenda.
I'll withdraw this, as long as I was not aware that the city attorney was given the notice that it would just continue. So I don't have a problem with that, and I will withdraw that motion.
Okay, and who was the second?
Second.
No.
Best was the second.
Can we take 5 minutes?
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead, take a break here to sort this through.
Excuse me, I object. We don't get to take a break to go talk in the back room with each other about what the council is doing. We're here right now. It's very clear. If you have a question, our city attorney is sitting right here.
All right. So the state we're at is.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Best.
Can we take 5 minutes so the attorney can review her contract for us and we can get her opinion as an attorney?
How does that work? So,
We can do it, I mean, he calls us a council, we're out to,
So,
she's,
give it.
in all clarity, you want me to pull the contract and redo the language? Is that the discussion?
Review what, you said you didn't have the contract in front of you.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me.
That's all.
Okay.
so, Councilmember Hudson, is that acceptable?
Mr. Mayor, I asked that the council vote to objection to consideration. That doesn't need any more discussion. That can be brought in as soon as somebody starts talking and the council votes on it. And if there's a majority of vote, it's immediately taken away.
You're, okay, objecting to the consideration of postponing.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
There's no motion left on the table since it's been withdrawn.
The second
second it.
hasn't
Yeah, we have a second.
concurred. So, okay, so,
Been voted on the first time.
so we have to vote on the consideration of the postponing of the executive session, right? Okay. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
I have a question, how come we can't ask the attorney of this process?
Objection to consideration.
Because
It's
she's,
not an objection to your consideration, it's conference with our attorney.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
yes, Councilmember Hudson.
That's been asked of the attorney.
I was called on by the mayor to speak, Mr. Best. Thank you. There is an objection to the consideration of the motion.
Okay, but the motion is to approve the agenda. That's part of the,
He's asking to change the agenda. So that is a completely separate topic. He's asking for a specific change to the agenda that wasn't placed in front of this council beforehand. And Mr. Mayor, if I may, we have a 160-page agenda in front of us that we have prepared to do. So all of these people are going to go home if we don't have an attorney. I can speak for myself and say as a council member, I am not going to sit here if the city does not have legal representation. So we need to figure this out. We need to figure it out quickly so we can get along with city business, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect, Councilwoman Hudson, I believe since someone has made a motion to approve the agenda, that would be the motion that you would be talking about withdrawing from consideration. I think since we're discussing that motion, the motion you are suggesting doesn't apply in this situation. I see your concern with what's being brought up, but I also see Councilman Cooper's concern with wanting to make sure that this meeting is legitimately attended by our attorney. I disagree with him, but I see his concern, and I think that we should discuss it. I did want to hear what our city attorney had to say about it, and if she has an answer to Councilman Best's inquiry.
I
Madam
need to
Attorney.
pull, I was not prepared to address my contract. I was under the understanding that I'd be scheduled soon, so I need to pull that really quick. I can answer that question. And the other thing I would look at really quick is, I believe in application of contracts and the city manager is the one that fulfills and is the role of putting those forward out. So if this was an amendment or an extension or, like a slight change, in order to allow, because of the delay on behalf of the city, to do the removal, to do the approval process or denial, the performance review of me that's scheduled in January, I am in writing and verbal fine with extending that on a temporary administrative basis, and with no changes in terms until my review is up.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I understand correctly, the city manager, interim city manager, has the authority to extend that given the circumstances, or not
Not
extend.
technically an extension,
It's a-
so the material terms of the contract are not being altered. Next meeting, I'm coming before you. So, it's not an extension, it's not.
Sorry, I know I
Speak
used
on
the
top
wrong
of you,
word.
not
I know
the,
what
not the
you mean.
extension. The city manager is the one that has the authority to, fulfill the directives from the city council in contracts.
Okay, so if we proceed with this meeting as it is written in the agenda, we are not legally liable for anything.
No, at this
Okay.
point, I was under the understanding that it would maintain as is until January 28th, at which time the council would make it. So all of their terms are acting, which I'm verbally putting out and in writing, in terms of our previous contract. And then January 28th, which was the earliest the city could, for other reasons, schedule me, then that would be at which point I'd be before the city. That's correct, right? I am on the January 28th agenda? Okay, so at that point, then that would, whether or not the contract is continued or changed or voided is up to city council.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think in hearing things like it is my understanding that this may or may not happen, it just makes me a little bit nervous. I actually think maybe I should make a motion that we extend our attorney's contract till at least January 31st, so that it's covered, it's on record, and it's not one of these, oh, I thought the understanding was this, I thought the understanding was that. I think we need something
Okay.
more definitive, and I'm a little bit nervous about this whole thing, why it's being removed. I think I hear something about January 28th, but when is it appropriate for me to make that kind of motion?
We have a bit of a
Snafu.
conundrum at the moment. So I think we need to vote on the reconsideration to amending the agenda. So that's what we'll do. So a yes vote will do what?
Are you talking about the
The- She wanted to do a reconsideration. The motion that we were looking at was to amend the agenda. Correct?
I just, last I heard from her was object to
Right, but what was on the table is we were amending the agenda.
correct.
Okay, so I'm calling that we're gonna do a vote on the reconsideration. So I'm asking, what does a yes vote do? What does a no vote do? So it's clear,
But yes, is voting yes to reconsider.
which would basically take away all of the amendments.
Right.
So a yes vote would clear the amendments about the agenda,
Correct.
and a no vote would defeat that, and would continue the discussion. Okay, so let's go ahead and, is everyone clear about what we're voting on?
No.
She called for a reconsideration, and the motion on the floor was we were amending the agenda. So she's calling to reconsider the motion on the floor, which I believe is to amend the agenda.
All the amendments.
Right.
And we're, sorry, Mr. Mayor, and we're taking out 1, A, B, and C from the consent agenda, and then we're also taking out O1 at the executive session. That's all part of one motion? So it's baby with the
It's an-
bathwater.
the-
It's still being looked at, the executive session.
We were approving the agenda, we were making amendments to it, And so this, yes, so we are reconsidering those amendments, if I'm understanding it right.
We continue amending if we yes, then we stop.
So, Mr. Mayor, I have a clarification question.
Yes.
I thought that you
Councilmember,
couldn't do,
Cooper.
I didn't think you could do a reconsideration until you actually had a vote. So you have to have a vote, yes or no, and then the people that are in the positive, or the majority are the ones that can ask for reconsideration. And we have not had any vote yet.
No, it's,
Mr. Mayor, if I may. Objection to consideration.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Objection to consideration is even the consideration of the motion. When you bring up a motion in front of the council, and I say objection to consider, that is objecting to consider the motion at all. So that's when you're saying the motion, objecting to consideration. Thank you. Not objecting to the motion that's been passed. That would be a withdrawal of a motion.
Councilmember Alcantara.
And Mr. Mayor, a yes vote on that objecting consideration is only objecting to
The amended
01.
agenda.
That's it, just the one thing, nothing else.
I was,
Any of the edits to the
we were interpreting we were doing we were amending the agenda, so I'm saying the amendment to the agenda is what we're reconsidering.
May I make a comment?
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hudson, we haven't voted yet on the agenda, so we haven't voted, so we can't reconsider in this case.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you. That's why it's an objection to the consideration of a motion. Objecting to considering the motion. It's not withdrawing a motion. It's not asking to amend a motion. It's objecting to the consideration. So we would vote to remove this consideration from the table, and then we would vote about amending different things on this agenda.
That's understanding?
So is it 1 or is it 4?
So what's a yes vote again? I'm sorry.
You guys are making it really complicated,
Yeah.
so I would request a recess so that I can look up the parliamentary end of this.
Okay,
I mean, I
and
just
the clerk is our
think we have to
parliamentarian,
be
so,
actual.
all right, so let's call a recess. Okay. I guess you need to
I'm confused.
yeah, well, and I,
So that was just
I will ask you for clarification. Okay, so we'll come back to our meeting. So the clerk is our parliamentarian, so can you explain and educate us here?
Councilmember Hudson has requested to object to the consideration of the second, we're calling it Amendment 2, which was the amendment to remove 01 proposed by Cooper. And so that vote can take place to object to that, and then it would require a 2/3 vote of the council and the positive, so for it to happen. So we can take a vote on that if you guys are ready whenever.
Okay, does everyone understand how this goes? Okay? All right, and so a yes vote is to essentially cancel Amendment 2.
Would be to object.
To
the
object, okay,
consideration
I'm
of
trying,
amendment
all right,
number 2.
wow,
Correct.
get the right language, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Councilmember Graver?
Hold on, I was trying to get it straight.
Okay, go ahead.
No, let's back up. So a yes vote, what did you say? Objects to
normal.
Amendment 2.
To the
And takes it away.
consideration, Yes.
Okay,
Councilmember Graver?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
no,
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
No.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay.
so what does that mean?
5, 2, 2, so we still have one amendment, Amendment 1, which moves
So,
everything down.
so did that cancel that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then back to Amendment number 1, which is to move the 3 action memorandums out of the consent agenda to the end of the action memorandum section. All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Best.
there was also a question of the attorney's contract. Could we get that information from the attorney?
Okay, Madam Attorney.
Yes, after pulling that and discussing with the clerk in the back. So under section 23, administration of the agreement, it says the city manager or designee will be the representative of the city administering this agreement. And in essence, no terms have been changed or material altered at all. I had a request for a performance review. The city was unable to do it due to executive session and the timing of that. So the city manager, in administering my contract, moved and scheduled the review for January 28th, and I would be maintained until then.
Okay, and as a little more clarification, Mr. Manager, didn't you send an email talking about continuation?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, so I'm just kind of trying to get everybody understanding. You sent an email saying we'll stick with the terms until we,
That is correct, yes.
okay. And was there a time period on that, or it was just until we?
The time period on that was, it was right around New Year's.
Okay.
It was either just before or just after.
Okay. All right. So, are we good to vote on the amendment number 1? All right? Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Excuse me. Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Graver?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous,
Okay. So that means we're back to approval of the agenda
as amended.
as amended. All right? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll for the approval of the agenda as amended?
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Graver?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Did I get everybody? Yeah.
And that included the approval of various minutes, including the correction noted by Councilmember Alcantara. Okay. Let's see, we have any elected officials in attendance, board and commission people. City managers report. Mr. Manager.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I do have a written report. It's in the agenda. One of those, the first part of that is the requesting something, or requesting an organization of the 557, or requesting them to form an operating entity. The reason for doing so is my role in these chambers is to provide you with accurate and timely information for legislation that comes forward. That's the job of the staff. That's why we're here, is to give you information to make decisions on. We're making decisions on things in here and taking the 557 into consideration, and we don't have any information, any formal information from the 557. One of the things we're out doing right now is we're going out for a design on cutting some rails downtown and fixing Fireweed Avenue. We're taking into consideration something that the 557 has indicated that they may want, but they haven't formally come forward to the city and requested anything. So what I'm asking for them is to give us a written request of what they want, so that we can bring that here into council chambers. We can give it to the general public, and staff can study this and give you what we believe is going to be the repercussions of that request. So it's, that was the reason for that. Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Councilmember Hudson, did you have a question of the manager?
Oh, just when he's done with his manager's
Okay,
report.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
And if I understand it right, part of it is the 557 group is a restoration organization, and I'm not sure that they have the ability to operate.
That's correct. And and again, just speaking to them verbally, that's kind of their understanding as well. And so we need an entity that we can interact with to be able to make decisions on what they can and can't do here in the city, what our requirements of them are, what their requirements are of us. So, and that, it's just a request of the 557 to interact, to interact with us in a formal manner.
Okay.
That was my request. The other, we'll move on.
Do you need council support on that or anything?
I would love council support on that, but you know,
I support that.
I don't know that, yeah, I'd love to have it.
Second.
I also support that.
Okay. But there's no objection. We'll say that the council's supporting your,
Thank you very much.
okay.
Are there any, I do have a verbal report as well. Are there any questions on the written report?
Okay. Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to express to our city manager how pleased I am that someone is finally taking a closer look at the Engine 557 restoration project. This is a matter that has the potential to bring a significant positive impact to our community, not only in terms of community engagement and historical preservation, but also in economic development. The possibilities for this project to create jobs, increase tourism, and stimulate local business growth are substantial, and I'm genuinely excited about the potential financial benefits for Palmer. As we discuss this matter further, I'd also like to remind the city and the city manager and my fellow council members of the resolution the city council passed, Resolution 17-017, on April 27, 2017, which formally supported the Engine 557 Restoration Company's efforts in preserving and restoring the Engine 557 and the rail infrastructure in Palmer. This is an important commitment we've made, and it's great to see progress being made toward the completion of the engine restoration. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
And we continue on with the verbal report. We'll start off with the city manager hiring process. Just talking to our HR company, it looks that they've got a lot of work to do. We have gone forward with a background check, and I don't have those details in front of me right now, but they are gonna do a thorough background check on each person as requested by council. And I'm not going to have those results to you likely until the first or second week of February. So I would recommend probably look at scheduling a meeting for the first or second week of February, probably at our next meeting, if that's agreeable to council.
All right.
Okay, and the next piece, last week or last Sunday, 2 days ago, I guess we had a large rain event. We had, as the National Weather Service recorded, we had about 1.38 inches of rain recorded at the airport in 6 hours. So what it did is it overwhelmed our storm drain system, and we had a little standing water in the intersection of some streets. It's not an unusual problem in Palmer, but it is unusual for this time of year for that to happen. I would say that the ground is frozen, so every drop of rain that fell likely ended up on the streets or in the storm drain rather than percolating into the ground. So it magnified the rainfall that we had. I'd also like to ask Mr. Billafer to come up. I know the Public Works folks were out and about most of the day Sunday working on storm drains, and also like to ask for an update on our sewer and our water treatment system, please.
Mr. Mayor, council members.
Is it on? You tap it.
Go ahead, tap it.
Now it's
Yeah, so hold it for about 3 seconds on the bottom. Very, very bottom, yeah. Okay. Pull it close, there you go.
Mr. Mayor, council members, yes, we did have a rain event. The good news is the storm drains worked as they were designed to work, which the design did not include that volume of water in that amount of time. We had one slightly frozen storm drain, which we detected much later after the event. We detected it Sunday evening to be frozen. That was up on Eagle Ave. That did not contribute to any of the issues downtown. I will tell you from the videos that we took, a significant amount of water came off of the Glen Highway, and there's not a whole lot we can do about that. I don't know if any of you were out and saw it. I was parked at the intersection of Evergreen and the Glen Highway. The volume of water coming down the Palmer-Wasilla Highway across the Glen and into the area by Diamond and South Cobb was incredible. All you had to do was watch the storm drains as they bubbled and gurgled, and it was incredible. So thankfully, there was no damage to property other than some minor, as I'm told, water infiltration. The storm drains, as I said, when I went out to the Knik River area, on the other side of the golf course, we have a couple 60-inch pipes, and that is the terminus of our storm drain system that was installed decades ago. They were almost full. It looked like something being discharged from the Hoover Dam, for lack of a better way to describe it, the volume of water coming out of those pipes. And a testament, too, that the system was working and things weren't frozen. For those of you who came in on Monday morning, most of the streets were dry to the tune of minor puddles that I think we've had even more during some of our snow melt. We did have crews in most of the days. The biggest challenge that I would love to put on the record for folks is drivers. When you see water on any road, it doesn't have to just be in the city of Palmer, please use some judgment and drive cautiously. Reduce your speed. I don't know how many cars I saw, MTR and some of the other local tow companies in front of PJMS, rescue vehicles that decided to go around our barriers and go at excessive rates of speed and flood out their engine, and now they're sitting in the water. And the people can't even get out of their car. So I just share that with folks. Please be aware, be cautious. You don't know how deep puddles may be. And here's a perfect example. 1.4 inches of rain generated the depth of puddles all over town that people saw. So it does not take a whole lot. Again, just a courtesy reminder, folks. The Eagle storm drain did get thawed out first thing this morning, finally. We took 2 jet rotor trucks from either end, and it did have ice in it, but that has ice almost every year because the storm drain main collection point right at Eagle Ave is less than 3 feet below the surface of the ground. It needs to be repaired. We have a project to do that, but it's a lot of money. So that's my update on that. Pending questions, because I'm sure there are questions.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, I'll start, Mr. Belfer. Thank you for being here tonight. I was at a Celebration of Life in Juneau this weekend and wasn't here on Sunday, so all my information came from citizens and people here in the valley and people who actually don't live in Palmer, but hey, Palmer's flooding, that kind of thing. So my big question is, because I work close to Palmer Junior Middle School, how deep of water were we talking about when it's like this worst case scenario, people couldn't flood out their cars? Are we talking a foot deep water, 2 feet deep water?
We had several areas over a foot deep. And it's not so much the depth of water, it's the speed that the vehicles were traveling through it. And just to give you an idea how fast things changed. So I was woken up at my house about 4:30 in the morning by a gust of wind that hit the windows on my south-facing portion of my house, which does not happen. And it woke me up, and I went outside, and I saw rain going sideways, and I went, this is unusual. So I tried to go back to bed, couldn't, had some coffee, came into town. I was in town by 8:30 in the morning looking around. The intersection of Chugach and Fireweed, over by the Excel Physical Therapy Building and Hanson Land Surveying. At 8:30 in the morning on Sunday morning, there was no water at that intersection. So I proceeded to drive around town, and I saw actions by the water that I knew things were going to get deep. I started talking to my crews, had crews come in. By 11:30, I went back to that location, and it was a foot underwater. So in 3 hours, that intersection right there of Fireweed and Chugach had almost a foot of water. And I went, there are 4 storm drains right there. I went to each one of those storm drains, and every one of them were clear. All you had to do was put your hand down by them, not too close, and you could feel the turbulence going on with the water trying to go down and then coming back up and trying to go down and coming back up. So, about a foot of water in most, 1.5 feet on a couple, but it was the speed of people going through them. If you wanted some comedic activity, just go sit by the McDonald's and watch the trucks move into the right lane and accelerate to try to go through the puddle. The rooster tail and spray was 10, 15 feet high.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Thank you for the report. And I say it not much tongue in cheek, but this is Alaska. This is my home for my entire life, and you only need to watch the news to see what happened in Anchorage in a lot of locations. And I can tell you in a first world problem report that I spent 3 hours on the tarmac in Juneau from 9 to midnight waiting for the wind to die down enough so we could take off out of Juneau because of their winds. So this rain event, that's obviously very significant for Palmer. I reflect back in the emergency management days when I was in Epicenter, and Seward would get 6, 8, 10 inches in a 24-hour period of rain. Different world. They got culverts the size of this room to move water, but yeah, this is Alaska, and I'm glad that everybody seemed to make it through. And it's always interesting though when you kind of make everybody's Facebook feed from all over the nation, I guess. So thanks for doing what you did.
We are looking at some potential low-cost mitigation. Just rest assured we are doing that right now. Anything from detention basins, because those are some of the lower cost items, redoing some of the lines in the storm drain system, that's millions of dollars, which I know we don't have.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to say thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us. I know that was going to be a topic that was going to come up today. And I was down in Girdwood, and they were equally underwater. It was really bad. I mean, driving back on that road back here we were going like 30 miles an hour just because it was so horrible. And hopefully this won't be a regular occurrence where we have this kind of snow in January. I mean, rain in January. And I think you kind of addressed the question I had, which is there anything in particular that was the cause of it? But it sounds like it's just the volume of rain was just overwhelming the system. Okay.
It was due to the frozen ground as well, because a lot of areas were still frozen. That rain just shed right off that ground into the street like it's supposed to.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, what's next?
Oh, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jude, the Glen Highway project, and with that water there, is that something we can go back on the state and say, hey, you know what? You guys have kind of created a situation with your project, your water management isn't working, come in here and you do a fix.
I have engaged my counterparts at DOT to further discuss this, because we have video. There was another section on the north part of the Glen Highway coming down into, and I don't know that they very well could have planned that part for this amount of rain, but the water coming down into West Beaver and then down into Auklet by the Sudsey Salmon, it was a 6-inch river, which then led to issues back in the Auklet area. That we hope can be addressed as part of that Glen Highway project, which they are currently in the scoping and public comment period. And that phase of that project goes from Arctic Bogard north to Palmer Fishhook. So I think we're at the right time to show them those videos and engage on that.
Councilmember Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, we had a water event, was it 4 years ago?
I think it was 2017.
17, okay. And I don't recall the water level getting at that intersection as it did this time. I mean, I remember people kayaking near the intersection you were talking about, actually in the road. And
And
people
at
out
the
there,
Borough
at the Borough Building, people out there with fishing poles and whatnot, kind of being funny, but I don't remember the water standing there. And so to me, their design created that issue. And this can go back on their errors and omissions, insurance or whatever, or redesign or work it into another part of the project. But I think that's something that should definitely be addressed. And I
It's
appreciate it.
definitely, you're absolutely right, something we should, and we are engaging with them. What a possible remedy might be, I'm not sure, and I don't even want to offer up something at this point. Yeah, it was a lot of water coming down the Palm West Highway.
Thank you.
Oh, Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you so much for everything that you guys did. I had a quick question. Have you guys considered a person that is like a point of emergency contact for situations like this? And then also the texting system for emergency broadcast system for Palmer. It seems like it may have been turned off 4 years ago, so maybe that would be something for us to reconsider as well. Sending out a text to Palmer residents, be careful of the puddles and whatnot if we do run out of barriers and things like that. But again, thank you so much for everything.
And that's a very good point. I think, and we had a little bit of this discussion, that there should be a centralized person within the city to address issues like a PIO, a public information officer. Obviously, that isn't for me to make, but a very good point. We did have that discussion. And the crews are, in regards to a texting system, I was aware that there was one. It was not something that was initiated by Public Works. I was aware there was one. I don't know what the status is right now. I apologize. I don't know what that is.
Mr. Manager?
I think that's something I can find out, figure out where to do it. My assumption is that would be centered around the police, our dispatch, 9G base, but that I can come back to. One other thing I'd like to present to council is probably just a brief update on where we're at with our wastewater system as well, because there is something.
We had some challenges. The volume of water that came into our wastewater treatment plant almost put it at a standstill. It didn't, thanks to the crew, and I had multiple folks down there all day on Sunday as well. But part of our challenge down there was a newly installed MEA transmission line along Brooks Road went down early Sunday. And so the treatment plant lost power. A couple of the generation systems did not kick on because the control panels got flooded. And this was something new that we have not experienced before. You're aware of all the upgrades that took place at the treatment plant. Bottom line, though, is it is fully operational right now. We did not violate in any way whatsoever in terms of our consent decree or having to alter our discharge or anything like that. And that is solely due to the efforts by the crew. They were down and did an amazing job all day Sunday at the treatment plant. So we are operational. We have some issues to address, and I have already started that. I met with the lead contractor, actually the vice president of Roger Hickle Contracting, yesterday at the treatment plant to go over some of the issues. That's just an FYI that we are actively working on some of the challenges that we faced with this event.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, sir. And that's all I have for manager's report.
Okay. Does council have any more questions for the manager at this point? Okay, next is the mayor's report. So I put in there a description of the bizarre scenario with the opioid settlement money that the borough has and their difficulties trying to make that happen. I don't know, is there any questions from reading my report on that? Or it's something that's just in the beginning stages. We've had a couple presentations. I think the manager and I have heard. And I think there's a couple more that we may be able next month to have more information, or if the council would like, we could have some presentation come to one of our meetings and kind of have a public presentation on it. Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question for you, Mr. Mayor, is was the city attorney present in those meetings with the borough about the temporary transfer of health powers?
No?
Can I ask why she wasn't in attendance for those meetings?
The presentation that I was at, I didn't realize that there was going to be more in-depth legal things. I believe the borough did bring in Nick, I think it was, and but I wasn't aware of that at the time. So she's been invited to be at the next one and try to help us process what it is they're asking. Councilmember Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Graver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to hear that the attorney will be at the next meeting. I'm just very wary of the past few months, it seems like a lot of things have been looking toward being transferred toward the borough, and seeing the phrase health powers and having that be transferred to the borough just really makes me wary. So I would really like to have a lot of information about this brought forward to the council. I think that would be very important. Thank you.
Okay. Understood. Councilmember Best?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo all those comments from both the council members. During the COVID epidemic, one of the conversations that had come up was because the folks that were in the borough were looking at trying to require masks to be on everybody because City of Wasilla didn't have health powers, City of Palmer did, and that was that whole discussion. So I am also very wary about ceding our authorities to a larger bureaucracy that doesn't have the same powers that we do. And so I want to make sure that as we go down this, that the attorney is very much involved in the discussions, that we saw where government could kind of get off track and go across their lanes, and I want to make sure that that this, if we were to have a discussion about this, that it is so tightly construed so that there cannot be manipulation, and that doesn't set a precedent for other situations that come up later on, and then it's just everybody shirks their shoulders and goes about it, and it's like, no, this wasn't the process, this isn't our charter. It's not how, we got differing governing systems. The borough, the Wasilla and Palmer were all three different types of governance. So I want to make sure that this is looked at with excruciating high detail, and I appreciate the rest of council's concerns in this as well.
Mr. Manager.
I just want to, I understand the concern of council. I had these initial concerns myself upon hearing what the borough was requesting, but listening to the attorneys describe it, listening to the deputy borough manager describe it as what they're asking for, is the power that they're asking for is so razor thin that it's a power that we have, but we are unable to use. The power, the named power is health powers related to receiving funds from the opioid settlement. That's the name of the power. We do not have the ability to receive funds from the opioid settlement. So that's why but the borough does have those funds. And if we allow them health powers to be able to, for the purpose of receiving funds from the opioid settlement, it allows them to be able to use those funds for health reasons. And those, what we can also ask for, it's a two-way street. We can give up, but we can also ask for possibly a seat at the table of this grant committee, of being able to disperse these funds, to be able to, ensure that it does benefit our community. And that's something that the attorney is going to receive that briefing on Thursday. We're going to have a meeting again with the borough. Mr. Spiropoulos, the borough attorney, is going to be there and describe the actual, what it is that we're seating. And I can tell you that it's so narrow that it's a power that would not affect us if we did seat it.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like the word that Councilwoman Graver used, weary. I used the word appalled at the very idea of the city relinquishing any health powers from the city of Palmer to the borough, even temporarily. Is 18 years temporary? For any reason, our city has worked extremely hard over the years to maintain our local control over our services and our decision-making processes. I believe it is essential that we retain that authority, especially when it comes to the health and well-being of our community. I understand the intent behind this proposal, ensuring the opioid settlement funds are directed to critical services, but I am deeply concerned about setting the precedents that could lead to future erosion of our local autonomy. Once we give up these powers, even temporarily, it opens the door for more control by the borough over matters that should be decided at our local level. We, as the elected representatives of the people of Palmer, are entrusted with making decisions that directly impact our residents. I believe that we are in the best position to understand the specific needs of the community, and I am not convinced that a larger governmental entity like the borough will have the same focused commitment to those needs. Before we consider anything further, I would just like to ask for the input of our city attorney on this matter. I think we need a clear understanding of the legal implications of transferring health powers, even temporarily, and the potential consequences this could have on our city's governance moving forward.
Councilmember Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one thing that is perplexing to me is, and I have no more information than anybody else does on this, is why was the borough given this grant not having health powers? So, and if it's defined as for health issues, it's curious that, and Wasilla doesn't have health powers either. We are the only ones that have health powers. So would we be umbrellaing really for the borough to reach across Wasilla as well? It's very perplexing, and I share Councilwoman Hudson's views on this, that we need to have this information before us, but it's perplexing.
Mr. Manager.
I understand. It's what happened. It's by population. This is the opioid settlement money that we've heard about in the news is being dispersed, and it's very specific on how it can be spent. So it was given to the borough because of a population. Palmer did not receive a piece of the settlement because our population was too low to receive it. Wasilla did receive some funds, and they have dispersed some of those funds. And what the borough is asking for is that, because Wasilla does have health powers, but they're being asked, or they have some specific health powers, I don't know. But it's, what the borough is asking for is the cities of Houston, Wasilla, and Palmer to cede this microscopic, razor-thin power to them so that they're able to disperse funding for basically health, treatment is what they're going after. That's their end goal. Right now, because they're a second-class borough, they can only disperse this funding for educational reasons. And they're not finding that they have places to put these pots of money with their grant authority. There just aren't places for it to go. So what they're asking for is to be able to help further help the community out, is to ask for this power, it's a health power related to receiving grant funding from the opioid settlement, so that they can use that in order to fund treatment within the Mat-Su borough. And they're not able to do this unless all three cities agree to it. And in doing so, the city of Wasilla, if they agree to it, they jeopardize their ability to receive grant funding because it's a health power specific to receiving the grant funding. So they're gonna have a separate agreement with the borough to be able to share that power. But this is only related, this power is only related to receiving opioid settlement money and nothing else.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was my understanding as quite as well, but Madam Attorney, do you want to make any comment at this point?
Not at this point. I haven't been briefed at all on this. I would love to be engaged in the future conversations going forward. And any powers that this council would ever choose to get away would be extremely limited in scope, need to not set a precedent. I would love to see the original grant language as to why it was given to the borough and not specific providers, what the settlement terms were for the federal lawsuit to start with. There's a lot of questions I would have regarding that, and that's something I could certainly prepare a report for as the conversation goes and evolves, and give that to council, should the council desire.
And that's some of my understanding is that the state of Alaska and the borough and the city of Wasilla participated in that settlement, or in the process leading up to the settlement, but, and Palmer did not, but, yeah. Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually had some comments a little bit later in your mayor's report, but I feel kind of compelled to at least address this one a little bit. I hear the caution and trepidation in my fellow council members' words, and so I definitely would say proceed with caution. And at the same time, I think once our attorney gets a chance to look and maybe comes to similar conclusions as our city manager, that we want to be paralysis by analysis, but we want to have a clear path and a very laser-focused piece before we start giving even slivers of our powers away. So I think what I thought I heard you say, Mr. Mayor, is a future presentation by somebody at the borough, or a future come before us and kind of answer some of the questions and maybe address some of the very legitimate concerns of council members.
Yes, and I would be wanting to dialogue with the attorney to, get her understanding of how, how we should get more information and present.
Okay. And, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember.
I didn't want to proceed unless if we're still on that topic, I'll wait for the
Okay.
sister city part, so let my other council members talk if we're still on this topic.
All right, Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. Secondary question. The borough will receive money based on population and the fact that they don't have health powers. We have health powers. We don't have population. Why cannot the borough transfer money to us and allow us to then distribute it to the nonprofits?
My impression is it's a legal issue, but that's why the attorney should get in there. Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm moving on into another part of the mayor's report. Is that
Okay.
okay? I just want to make sure that's
Sure.
okay with everybody before I make
I
my
think so.
statement. Okay. I just wanted to bring up a matter of urgency regarding the upcoming trip to Juneau next month. We're only a few weeks away from the scheduled dates, and the clerk's office needs time to make necessary arrangements for that, for travel and accommodations. I do believe that the rates are going up also on rooms, so there's quite an urgency to this. The council members who will be attending also need ample time to plan and prepare. I'm not sure why we have yet had this discussion or who will be attending and what the official procedure will be, but we're just running out of time to make everything in its place for this important trip. So I would just strongly urge that we bring this matter to a quick resolution sometime so that we can move forward with the necessary preparations.
Okay. My understanding is in the past, we've kind of left it up to the individual council members to decide, to speak to the clerk's office about arrangements, you know. And then there could be some issues with budgets as far as getting enough money, and we may have to make a budget revision if we all decide to go to Juneau, but that's quite possible. I believe the dates are February 18 to 20, and I mean, to me, that's how we've done it the last few years, is that each council member kind of can make their own decision and then talk with the clerk's office. And
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, I'll loop that same question into your sister city's report, but yeah, last year, as I recall, the mayor and 3 other council members attended AML, so there was 4 people. I believe in 2023, when I went, there was just me and 1 other council member. Seems like there should be some sort of cap, that we shouldn't necessarily pay for 7 people. If there's just 7 people that want to go do things in Juneau, then maybe we should have a discussion about funding, because, hotel rooms in Juneau are extremely expensive. Yes, there's some power in everybody's collective voice going up on the hill, but I don't think you need 7 city council members to go to Juneau. So maybe there needs to be a discussion on not just saying, hey, it's a first come, first serve, and the ones that don't know about it, okay, too bad, and we're out of money now. I think we should potentially say, here are the people, the mayor should go, but then we should say, here are the people that should go. And then on to the sister city part, if I could, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this report. It's great. Learn a little bit more about it all the time. Just on a personal note, my daughter is one of the attendees going to Seroma in June, so pretty exciting for her. And speaking of funding, that's not a cheap ticket either. So a ticket even bought, we've already purchased the ticket for her travel in June, and even a ticket purchased that far in advance. You're talking a $2,000 round trip to Tokyo, and another $300 ticket in country to get from Tokyo to Seroma, or the airport closest to Seroma, which is about as far away as Anchorage's airport from us. So I like what you said in your report. I appreciated that back in the last time Palmer folks attended, that the city paid for the mayor to attend. I think that's entirely appropriate. And I would suggest that anybody else that wishes to attend would have to kind of do so out of their own pocket. I don't think we can just have a willy-nilly, like, hey, everybody wants to go to Juneau, everybody wants to go to Japan, everybody wants to go places. We need to have a little more discussion on, it makes complete sense, as it did in 2010, that when Mayor Combs went, and council member and our friend and his wife paid for their own travel to Seroma, and I think hopefully that's the way it's being looked at for this travel this summer. So kind of a 2-pronged thing. The Juneau trip obviously is coming right up in about a month, and the Seroma trip's coming up in July, and I think you just got to keep a laser focus on how we're going to spend that money and what kind of report and things we're going to get out of our members that attend any kind of meetings. Thank you.
If I remember right, I believe our AML budget for conferences or whatever, I think is 10,000. Is that right?
It's under travel and education.
Yeah, so 10,000, and it's about 2,100 average, I think, for each person going to AML for Juneau. So kind of a cap if you want to consider it that. But Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, just kind of a question on the Seroma. Is there a cap on the number? Let's say we do like a city council bake sale and we raise the money and let's say everybody raise their hand, they go, I want to go. Is there a restriction on how many people are able to go with OMA or?
I think my understanding from, was, I think the mayor and two others, if I remember right,
Mr. Mayor,
is what the Seroma Kai people were planning on.
I think your understanding is right on. We're talking to Sensei Swick. I think it's the mayor and two other people was sort of the thought process that they had. So thanks for Deputy Mayor for bringing up that question.
Okay. Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I saw that in our budget, it looks like we put aside $20,000 for the Sister City program. Was that for this trip specifically, or is that for when we're helping fund them traveling here?
It's for all the Seroma Sister City activities, which includes, we usually donate, I want to say 7,000 towards the kids traveling over that way. And so it's all those activities, as well as, you'll notice there's a lot of gifts up in that box there that I think we're expected to take some gifts, et cetera. So it's all part of that. That budget's for all of those activities. Councilmember Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the limitation on the Seroma participation. I wasn't a big fan when we had discussions at this dais when other council members were trying to get their passage over there paid for. I believe it should just be the mayor and everybody else is on their own dime. But I do believe that we would be limited even not just from what the Seroma folks are saying, but from OMA for more than 3 of us to go over there, I think would be a breach of the OMA anyhow. But when it comes to travel down to Juneau for AML, we have historically for the last 20 years allowed everybody that could and would participate because we don't pay for lobbyists in this city. We don't have a lobbyist, and we all of us individually and collectively are our lobbyists. And so I encourage everybody to participate, to go down to Juneau, build the relationships with the legislators, with the staffers, get to know them, because at any time we could have a situation where 1 or 2 of us have to go down there to lobby for something, not just during AML, but during any year as we go along. So those relationships, understanding the processes down there, understanding the culture of the Capitol itself is very important, and it's also it's very enlightening as well.
And might also comment too that with AML, there's a specific exemption in the Open Meetings Act that allows more than 3 council members to attend events with AML. All right, is there any other questions for the mayor's report? Okay, city clerk.
Just wanted to remind the council about the AML Winter Legislative Conference that you just talked about. Excuse me, is on my list, February 18th through 20th in Juneau. Please let the clerk's office know your specific travel dates based on your schedule as soon as possible for best prices on tickets. Just let us know and send us an email or stop by or whatever you need to do so we can do that moving forward.
Okay. Any questions for the clerk from the council? Okay, city attorney's report.
Good evening, and I'm going to be very brief but available for questions. I wanted to follow up on the last meeting. I was asked a question was raised that I was tasked to look at regarding if telephone communications by the deputy mayor, as requested by the interim city manager, would constitute an OMA violation. So I just, real quick, OMA is, for the public, it's the Open Meetings Act. That's under Alaska Statute 29-20-020, and is defined further 44-62-310. And the city councils do fall underneath the requirements of the statute of OMA. So what OMA says is that all meetings must be public unless an executive session is allowed by law. And the definition of meetings is really where the linchpin is with OMA. So a meeting is defined as one, more than 3 members, or a majority of members, whichever is less, and 2, a matter that the government body is empowered to act in is being considered or discussed by the members collectively. So the question was raised, and it is my, regarding telephone communications by the deputy mayor, by the interim city manager, whether or not they constitute an OMA violation. And it's my opinion that they do not, for the following reasons. That specifically that actions taken did not meet the definition of meeting. While communications were made to more than 3 city council members, the second definition of meeting is that public business is discussed which the body cannot, that the body may act upon. So in this situation, the interim city manager asked the deputy mayor in his role of deputy mayor to convey an administrative update regarding the status of an employee. It was a courtesy phone call. This was solely a courtesy information update. It was administrative in nature and did not fall under the authority of the council. For example, no future action could be taken by the council regarding a specific employee's status. That is tasked solely administratively to the city manager. And as a result, the conveyance of phone calls regarding a status update would not meet the definitions of meeting under the Open Meetings Act because it is not something that you were all discussing that you would vote on in the future. This was merely the deputy mayor being efficient, courtesy, and volunteering to assist an administrative task as requested by the interim manager.
Okay. Any questions for the city attorney from the council? All right, next we have audience participation, but I think maybe we'll take a break. I don't see squirming yet, but we'll take a 5-minute break because I've been drinking water. I don't.
Miss Shelley, do we have any more cups? Mr. Travis. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brad.
Brad's gonna go get you a cup.
Okay, so let's go ahead and we can start with audience participation. All right, we'll come back to order. And next is audience participation. Council meeting rules protect your right to testify and be heard even if others in the room disagree with you. Council meeting rules also ensure that those attending can express their views if they do not interfere with the rights of others to see and hear the proceedings. At all times, order and decorum will be maintained in keeping with the civility and dignity of the legislative process. Please be respectful during audience participation. No disruptions to city business or threats of any kind will be allowed. Individuals who cannot follow these guidelines will be removed. Any threats against others could result in criminal prosecution. Please sign in, state your name in 3 minutes each person. So, we have Mary Jo Parks. Pull it close. It's on. But pull it close.
Good evening. I am Mary Jo Parks, president of the board of the Palmer Museum of History and Art. As I look around the room tonight, I think of all the history that's been made here, the decisions that the city council has had to make, the community members who come before you with their requests, the various mayors and all the accomplishments that you as council have already obtained. There have been arguments, there have been lots of tough moments, but there's also been moments of glory, awards, and accomplishments that have truly made Palmer the city that it is. We are a city in transition, and I think of the history of our community. We are able to preserve our uniqueness. The nonprofit Palmer Museum of History and Art has worked for 20 years, almost 20 years, to preserve and present the history of Palmer. We have worked to meet this obligation with industry standards. Every dollar the city has given us, we have matched through funds through grants, fundraisers, and other projects to continue to share the story of Palmer. We have preserved our artifacts, displaying them as often as possible throughout our city and especially at the museum. We have a collection of over 30,000 photographs. Available on our website at this time is over 10,000 of them, and they are being viewed worldwide. That is the special project that the nonprofit took under and continues to maintain. Tourists from over 40 different companies like Princess Tours, Holland America, Korean Tours, Salmonberry Tours, and their own local Rebel Tours stop at the Palmer Museum because of its history. Over 37,000 tourists, friends, family members, and community members came to the visitor information /museum last year. They were always impressed with the Palmer Museum. One of the things I enjoy hearing most often, especially from city people, is that, oh, I didn't know that. So it's wonderful that we're able to also educate. Last year alone, we had over 1,500 elementary students and students throughout the community come for tours. Over and over again, we hear people from around the world say, Palmer is unique and wonderful, and thank you for sharing their history. This is the 90th year the colonists coming to Palmer. 2 years ago, we dedicated money and hired a collections expert to write a book sharing more of the information about the colonists. And I'm going to read you a quick excerpt. Earl Berry was born to Octave and Mary, who were both from Quebec, Canada. He married Louise Berbercue, I'm sorry how to pronounce it, on August 1916 in Octane, Wisconsin, where he grew up. Together they had 7 children, ranging in ages from 18 to 22 years old. The family moved to the Matanuska Valley, settling in the Palmer area, where they had 2 more children by 1938. The Berry family was active in their new community and even sold ducks through the local newspaper. In 1938, they purchased the Bogard homestead on Finger Lake, where they farmed and eventually established the resort, Berry's Resort, on the northwest corner of the property. Finger Lake was sometimes actually referred to as Berry's Lake. Earl's oldest son, Earl Octave Berry, was the first and only student to graduate high school in Palmer in the spring of 1936. One of Earl's granddaughters, Caroline, married Traeger Makaton, the only child of the renowned artist Fred Makaton. Their daughter Marion later owned and operated the Pioneer Cafe in Cordova. We are looking at every colonist that came, and there will be a story about each and every one of them. We're hoping that that will be ready for the community by June. One of the biggest projects we've taken on, and we started this last October, is what we're calling 1935. Everyone is talking about it. The Palmer Museum of History and Art announced a year-long celebration of the residents of the Palmer area. 1935 is the 90th year of the anniversary of the arrival of the New Deal colonists and the founding of Palmer High School. We are working with organizations, businesses, and community members to celebrate and remember the history
That's your time.
of the area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for audience participation? Travis, what's your last name? There you go.
Much better. Hello, my name is Travis Friesen. I live in Palmer, and I want to talk about the Engine 557 because I think some people's interest has peaked in regards to the railroad tracks, and I would like to see some historical trains running through there. You know, taking people to and from Palmer, on Christmas or Thanksgiving, or at the Alaska State Fair. The only problem is that the tracks are still owned by the Alaska Railroad, which as you know, they've refused to help, to aid into potential services on their tracks. So they won't help because, Alaska Railroad is government owned, so it's not a private owned. So, which got me thinking, last time I spoke about trains and such, the last time I was here, and I thought, why not start a private company in which they collaborate with the Alaska Railroad? If you've heard, there's a company in Florida and soon service between Los Angeles and Las Vegas called Brightline. That in Florida, Brightline is a private company, and the tracks that they operate on is owned by CSX, which is, I believe, is owned by Berkshire Hathaway. So, it's freight train service. So they're able to get permission to use their tracks for passenger service. So I was thinking, why not set up a private company that with the permission and blessings of the Alaska Railroad to operate on their tracks, and will be responsible for our rolling stock, which is the passenger cars and services and such. So I was thinking maybe we should band together and probably have a Kickstarter campaign, GoFundMe, or some grants to raise up the necessary amount of money to start this company, and also to restore the steam engine. So that's what I would like to see. So this is an idea, and I hope that you people are interested in that concept. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for audience participation?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cindy Hudgens, and I live here in Palmer, and I have a few things that I would like to talk about tonight. Thank you for the privilege of being able to come before the council and say a few things. So, first off, when I read the mayor's report, I was absolutely mortified. Page 1, okay, nothing. Page 2, oh my goodness. How can the city even consider giving any minute amount of health power over? Any governing entity, when have they ever relinquished temporary or otherwise powers, whatever they are, when their temporary time is up? This is insane on so many levels. I can't even fathom. They want 3 cities to give up their health powers? That crazy. I think that our attorney needs to check into if that money can be signed over to Palmer, because giving over powers is, no. Okay. So also with the whole hiring of the new city manager, come on people, there is a name on this list that was supposedly vetted and it says he has not been terminated at all. Who the heck vetted this HR company? Can they be trusted? This guy, Scott something, he's the second name or third name on this list. He's been terminated at least twice, and one time was in September of 2024. I mean, come on, how hard is it to find that? I think I would question any of these vettings on this list. I would question the ability of this HR company that whoever hired even has to do such a job. It's ridiculous. I mean, we're going to end up with another nightmare like we've already gone through. Crazy. So next, I'm a little concerned about the whole infrastructure of our city. Yes, this was unprecedented, this rainfall. I had flooding at my house too. My driveway flooded into my basement. But what consideration is being put to our city budget for things like this? Anyway, to be continued at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation?
Domo arigato gozaimashita. Mr. Mayor, thank you. As has been said before, that about 15 years ago, my wife and I had the opportunity to go to Soroma. And I thought as you brought it up here, I might surface a few other details there, both to suggest whoever does go is going to have a wonderful time. An extraordinary reception. We've been happy to host members of the delegation when they came here. And I also sit on the board of Palmer-Sonoma Kai. And that body has supported student exchange, city exchange over a number of years. Carla Williams-Swick, who is president of Palmer-Sonoma Kai, and you all know, a Japanese teacher locally, has spent a lot of time in Soroma. She owns a house in Soroma, and is going to be going there on this trip. I've had conversations with her recently, and I can share that this whole approach is done both with discussions here. The biggest question is who's going to go. There are about 25 people right now that are in the queue to go. My wife and I have purchased our tickets. And if someone is planning to go, it's really important to do that now. The tickets are pricey, but they also vary in terms of both seats and availability, simply. Once you get there, my experience has been you have a first-class reception with people who have been selected to match up with whatever your particular interests are. And in our case, we spent a week last time. We plan to spend a week there in Seroma. And then we'll go on down south to do some hiking and other things that we'd like to do. I wanted to say that we paid last time, the mayor was paid for by the council and the city, and I think that's appropriate. Everyone who is going to go is going to have to take a certain amount of money, certainly a certain amount of time, and a certain amount of effort too. When the reference was made to a variety of things that have been presented to the city or to individuals, the Japanese culture does support the idea of exchange of gifts. That's an important consideration. So thank you again.
Is there anyone else for audience participation? Okay, we will close audience participation. Next is public hearings. Resolution number 25-006, authorizing the city manager to accept and appropriate funds in the amount of $218,180 from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security under the 2024 State Homeland Security Grant Program for the purchase of a large generator to provide backup and emergency power to the Palmer Police Department and Dispatch Center, and the purchase of portable radios along with the necessary equipment to be able to deploy them, such as antennas, microphones, wiring, holsters, and programming. So we will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this resolution 25-006 can come forward. Okay, we will close the public hearing. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any questions of staff? Do you want a staff summary? It's pretty clear. Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Graver,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor,
Yes?
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Best.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. Next is ordinance number 25-001, amending Palmer Municipal Code 2.04.090 executive session. We will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this ordinance can come forward. Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second?
Okay, and in the notes here, it mentions there's a version 1 or a version 2. Madam Attorney, you want to clarify?
Yes, if you'll look at that, that's the distinction between audio recording or audio and visual. Two different verbiage. The council needs to pick one of those.
So-
Audio alone or audio and visual recording.
So version 1 is audio alone and version 2 is,
I believe so. I'm skimming real quick to find it. Yes, that's correct.
okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Graver. Oh, sorry. Did we get a motion and a second and a clarification which one we're looking at, or we're,
Oh,
go ahead, Councilmember Graver.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did make a motion and we second, and so I'm just discussing.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay. I was wondering, so we have the version 2 with audio and visual. If that's the version we went with, I know that we're not prepared at this time to do the visual, if that's correct, still. So were we to adopt that version, does that mean we would be liable if we weren't able to have that visual recording right away, or that could just be something we add in the future?
Madam Attorney, do you want to?
Just wanted to make sure.
I'm looking at the verbiage. I am, executive session recording. Oh, wait. No, you should not be liable for that. And we can add something in that, but even this discussion is an interpretation of it that would be contingent upon, because our current technology only allows for, no? Okay. Oh, you're set up? Okay. Disregard.
Okay.
Thank you.
There was an update, but
Councilmember Graver, did you have anything more?
Should I make a motion now, or can I make a motion now? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, would it
Or
be
an amendment?
to
Okay.
specify?
I would like to amend or specify that we choose version 2.
Okay,
Second.
all right, moved and seconded for version 2, which is audio and video.
Correct.
All right. So that is an amendment. Is there any discussion on that amendment? Okay, let's go ahead, I guess, and vote on that amendment. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll for the amendment to specify option 2.
Correct. Councilmember Graver,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous on the amendment?
Okay. Is there any more discussion on resolution, or ordinance, excuse me, ordinance number 25-001? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call a roll for the actual vote on the ordinance. On adopting the ordinance 25-001. Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Graver.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay. Next is a public hearing for resolution number 24-005, amending the 2024 City of Palmer budget for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2024, and authorizing the city manager to appropriate funds for the year-end employee bonuses in amount not to exceed $143,759.
Move to approve.
Well, first we'll do the public hearing. We'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to that, you can come forward. Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing.
Move
Yes.
to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right. Madam Clerk?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Mayor.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Could I ask a question to the city manager, maybe?
If you've got,
If he has an answer for me. I know we approved this already back in December. So refresh my memory into why they have to go into the detail of each budget line for each department. Because in the future, I'm curious why we don't just say, hey, full-time employees, you get $1,000, part-time employees, you get $500. And I know we did a net 1,000 and a net 500, but I've never seen that before in the private sector. They give a $500 bonus, it just comes off, you pay your own taxes on it, you pay your own, you don't get any additional benefits from that. You don't accrue any more leave on it, you don't get any more health insurance or anything from it. And so I couldn't remember why, and it just strikes me as it should be a nice round number. I mean, if we have 100 employees and 80 are full-time and 20 are part-time, it should be 80,000 for 80 and 10,000 for the 20. It shouldn't be this, it shouldn't be this convoluted where you go through, a couple of pages of exact, amendments with both salaries, benefits for each individual department. So that's kind of my thing is that, I guess my question is, does the benefit, the $1,000 benefit, does it cost the same for department heads as it does for clerks out front? Is everybody really costing the exact same, or is it costing us more to give a department head a $1,000 bonus versus a clerk a $1,000 bonus? I kind of encapsulate my question.
Mr. Manager?
It's a net bonus, which means that the city pays the taxes for the bonus. So if indeed that, like you were using your example, if the clerk's paid this much tax for $1,000, then the city covers that tax. So if it's more for one employee than another, then the answer would be yes.
So, Mr. Mayor.
And one other way to further to answer the question I think you're asking is that why are we specifying, the different line items in the budget? And the reason is because we don't generally do it this way. So this is how we did it to show exactly what is being proposed. The way that we generally do this is that the city manager is directed at the end of the year, and then this is covered in a budget amendment typically done in February. So that this is different than the way we normally do it. So this is probably why you haven't seen this before.
So, Mr. Mayor, just
Councilmember Alcantra.
just to put a fine point on it. So it does cost more to give a higher end employee $1,000 than it does a clerk. It does not. It's the same exact benefit across the board. And when you say you're paying the tax, you mean the FICA tax, Social Security tax? Okay.
Okay. Are we ready to vote then? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Graver,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Teeter,
Yes?
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra.
Yes.
Unanimous?
Okay, next is action memoranda. Action memorandum number 25-002, authorizing the interim city manager to negotiate a contract with the Palmer Museum of History and Art. This is an AM, so, okay, well, first we should get a motion on the floor.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Mr. Manager, can we maybe get a staff report?
Mr. Hanson, please. And while Mr. Hanson's coming up, to clarify, there's two different contracts with the same entity coming up. So Mr. Hanson will clarify the two different contracts.
Mr. Hanson.
So this is the museum contract, you have a VIC contract and a museum contract. The contract was extended beyond the length of the last contract last year for 1 year. The contract draft in your packet is the exact same contract, ready to be amended once you decide up to your appropriate levels. We did issue an RFP. We had it open for three weeks. I did send a notification to 3 different entities, encouraging them to review the RFP and hopefully submit a proposal. We did only receive one proposal, and Palmer Museum of History and Art was it. They did, with their proposal, provide basically 3 levels of fees, depending on what you desire as your museum services. The first level would just be to have a collection manager and pay for half of the executive director, and you can see the numbers there. The second option is to have a collection manager and a collection manager assistant, as well as the executive director. So those were the two options that were given to us. As was stated earlier by the president of the organization, we have had a long-term relationship. They have been the only one that have curated the museum artifacts. And, you know, it's been a good relationship. They take great care of our city-owned artifacts. So if there's any questions, I'm willing to answer any as to the status of the current contract, which has expired, or on future.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question is, was this, so I heard you say that you had sent this to 3 different people. Was this bid publicly advertised as required by the city's procurement policy?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and then where exactly was the bid posted, and who had the opportunity to
It was
respond?
posted on our website. Also, it was posted in the Frontiersman twice, per our code.
Okay, and then, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Hudson.
My next question is do you think that if an RFP was asked for at the end of March last year, you think 3 weeks was truly enough time for these companies to be able to prepare this to you with all the things that you were asking for them to give?
I believe it was, yeah. That's typically what we ask for in an RFP is 3 weeks. You know, if it's a very complex one, for instance, an annexation study or an annexation analysis, we may go 4 weeks, but 3 weeks is the typical amount of time.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thanks, Mayor. And this is no ill will toward Palmer Museum of History and Art. I just as a question, I'm just curious as to, like, did you get any feedback on why no one else wanted to even apply for it, or just curious?
You have to have a certain level of expertise to do this program that we're asking for. I did extend invitations to the chamber. I extended invitations to the Palmer Historical Society and the Palmer Museum of History and Art. It does require considerable amount of expertise, and as a result of that, I think there's a limited amount of people that have the abilities to bid on this. First of all, they got to retool up for basically a new operation they're going to have to operate. So I think that's the biggest obstacle when it comes to this. We live in a community that has a couple of historical societies, but you know, I talked extensively with the Palmer Museum of History and Art, Palmer Historical Society last year when the contract was up, and you know, I sent them a copy of the current RFP or the current contract and what the duties and responsibilities were, and some of their apprehension is they kind of have a competing historical artifacts as opposed to us, and you know, they didn't want to complicate their collection with our collection at that time. You know, that may have changed, but you know, they didn't want to commingle the two types of collections.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a little education on this, at least an educated opinion on this. Number one, Palmer Museum does a fantastic job on a very shoestring budget. I mean, it's incredibly frugal. The work that the board does, these two folks that are here tonight with us do, is really unbelievable. And I say that as a person who sat on their board for 3 years. One thing is a glaring example of that is, you know, a half-time executive director with their extremely limited benefits is only $27,000. I mean, when I was on their board just a few years ago, the executive director was making less than $40,000 a year. be the executive director. That's unheard of out in in any world, especially and also in the nonprofit world. So I think part of it and part of why people wouldn't respond is that they probably can't figure out a way to, build a better mousetrap. They can't figure out a way to do what the Palmer Museum and their board does now for anywhere close to the kind of money that is in this contract. So I applaud the work that they do, and I'm happy to see this in front of us. Thank you.
So last thing here, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor. So
Yes,
what I'm
Mr.
really
Hanson.
asking you to do is decide what level of library, museum services you wish to have. And once you determine whether it's option one, option two, we can move forward with completing the contract.
Okay. Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. In that regard, I'd like to make a motion that we accept option number 2 in an amount of $84,475 to include the director, whatever the proper titles are, that I can't find them right now, the 3 people that are involved in that.
Okay. I was also going to offer, if we wanted to suspend the rules, we could invite the president of the group to come up and, if we had questions for her.
Mr. Mayor, I would like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So do I just declare it? Okay. So,
I'm the vice chair, and I'm just gonna have a little more.
okay.
Specifics.
Hang on just a sec. So is there any objection to suspending the rules to allow representatives from the museum to talk to us? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Sorry, would you start with your name, sir? Again, ma'am?
I'm Pat, my name is Pat Chesborough, and I am the vice chair right now of the museum and have been a couple of times acting director as we've searched for directors. So, and as we noted, we don't pay enough to really get a huge number of people that are, so I do it for free, so there you go. So the museum services is the thing that we're looking at here. We've had, for a number of years at the museum, we've been very frugal, and part of the reason we've been frugal is we've had a collections manager who has worked for $14 or $15 an hour, which is not really very much money for that kind of a job. Now, he doesn't have a background in it, but he's spent, I don't know, probably 10 to 12 years doing the job, and so he's learned on the job how to do it. In the last year, he is now only working as a volunteer now with the photo project. He is no longer paid at all. He is a total volunteer. So we do have, so right now we have written a grant to get a collections aid to help with just kind of the bookkeeping stuff. But we don't really have anybody, and we have not had for a long time, anybody to actually make exhibits, do the part that a professional would do to make sure that our museum is accessible to everybody. We don't, as you know, if you've been there, we don't have much space. So we need to make sure that our exhibits really tell the story as best we can. And some of those exhibits, if you've been there, some of those have been there for quite some time. It takes a very talented person to be able to develop an exhibit that really tells the story in a small amount of time. So one of the things we're really hoping to do is to be able to hire a professional person to be able to do this. And it's just going to cost us more money than what we've been spending. And so we're anxious to do it. We think we're at the right point to be able to do it. And we'd like to make the use of every inch of space that we have. And we're also trying to get things out into the community so that the community can enjoy them in other venues besides the very small area we have.
Okay. Does any council have questions for the museum? Deputy Mayor Tudor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for speaking with us. I decided, it's probably a jump on the gun, but are there any exhibits that you're kind of mulling over and planning on that you could share
Well,
with us?
we really would like to do an exhibit about early homesteaders, for example. There's a lot of people that were here before the colonists came, and they not only helped the colonists, they helped to build the area. We'd like to expand our connection to the Chickaloon tribe specifically, but also our Alaska Native exhibits. We'd like to make sure that, right now we have kind of a weak one, so we'd really like to do that. So yes, and we'd like to update even the part about the colonists, especially in the 90-year part. And as Mary Jo was saying, we're trying to bring the community together with this whole idea of 1935, everybody's talking about it. Well, there was a lot of things happening in 1935, great music, all kinds of things happening in the world. And we'd like us to celebrate as a community that. And so we just really need a professional. I mean, I can do stuff, but I am not a museum professional. And for me to design an exhibit, no.
Other questions from the council? Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not exactly a question, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming, and you're a very eloquent speaker. So thank you so much for presenting that information to us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We're done relaxing the rules? Okay, so we're back into normal session. Mr. Manager.
And I believe we had one more point to make. Mr. Hanson wanted to say one more thing, if that's okay.
Mr. Hanson.
Yes, so I wanted to show you that within the current budget, there's 60 grand budgeted for this year's museum services. And so we didn't know at what level you're going to approve this. So whatever level you approve, we're going to have to bring forward a resolution appropriating 25 grand or 14 grand, whatever you select. Just want to make you aware of that.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Hanson before he disappears? Okay. So we had a motion and a second to do option 2. Is there any more discussion? Are we ready to vote? All right, Madam Clerk, you can call the roll, please.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilmember Graver?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Okay. Next is action memorandum number 25-001, that authorize the city manager to issue an RFP for a study that evaluates current and future parking and pedestrian access in the central business district for an amount not to exceed $50,000. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have questions of manager? Do we want staff report? Are we ready to vote? I guess we're ready to vote. Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Graver?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Okay. Next is action memorandum number 25-006, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute 2-year lease extension agreements with Nicole Reed and Triveras LLC for the temporary library, providing long-term storage for the library books. So wishes of the council?
Second?
So moved and seconded. Is there any questions of council or Councilmember Alcantra?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this $134,000 is for both, correct? This is for both the property, the one in the town, and the storage out in the industrial park that we're doing here. I guess just as a comment, I know it needs to be done. So he's going to vote to approve it, but it just pains my heart to see where we're at 23 months post collapse. So I guess leave it at that. And I know this is something that we have to do. So I don't think a 3% increase is out of line, considering all costs go up. So I'm okay with it.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question for the city manager. Is the money that is coming out of this lease extension from the insurance company, is that coming out of our end payment that we receive, or is this just something on top of it that the insurance company is just going to be paying for?
Mr. Manager?
I think that's a technical question I'm not going to be able to answer for you. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you.
Mr. Hanson?
So there's two elements to our coverage. One is business loss, and one is the actual damage for the building itself. This is out of the business loss part, out of the contents and business loss part, which so it's not ultimately going out of the business or the building itself, because we have not anywhere near reached our capacity as far as what our limits are.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this portion of the funding is not coming out of our ultimate amount that we would receive at a later date. This is something that you're saying is separate with the insurance company to pay for this because of the collapse.
It's separate coverage. Yes, there's two, he's describing two different portions of coverage. Like if you were to have a car crash, I'm comparing this to like a separate insurance. Like there's like an injury coverage and there's car coverage. And this, the business loss portion covers our payments that we make for the storage of books and for the separate building that we have to have a library in. It does not come out of the cash value that we would be compensated for the collapse of the building. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Is there any other questions from council? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll for this action memorandum.
Deputy Mayor Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Vest,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Graver.
Yes.
Unanimous?
Okay, and if I'm following right, now we are on to action memorandum number 25-004. Back up there. Is that right? Authorizing the city manager to execute a management services agreement amendment number 4 with Eagle Golf Course Management, Inc. for the operation of the Palmer Municipal Golf Course in the amount of $425,000 to reflect 2025 payments. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there questions from the council? Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a concern specifically about this with the golf course. I saw in our budget that we approved $425,200, and in this amendment it's just $425,000. Can you explain the discrepancy in the $200 in the budget?
Mr. Manager?
I did see the extra $200, and I don't have an explanation for it, no.
Okay. Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Because I value transparency with where these funds are going, I think it would be best for us to maybe bring up Ms. Gina or somebody. Is there anybody here that could answer this question for us before we decide on a vote? Or maybe we need to table this for a later date, just to make sure we understand where our funds are going? Thank you.
Well, that
Mr.
extra
Manager.
$200 doesn't necessarily need to be spent, just because it's in the budget for that, and we're signing a contract. We're not going to pay the contract any more than what the contract is. So the $200 can remain in that line item and just stay there and be, as part of the general fund as part of next year.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Manager, if I may, so then do you think that we should amend the budget we just passed to take away those $200 to put them back into a different part of our budget, just so that our numbers are matching up on what our budget is that we passed and the amounts that we're in contract with the management service?
It's entirely at council's discretion if you choose to do that. The budget is only a plan to go into the year with. It's not anything that's set in concrete, and it can change at any moment when council chooses to change it.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would suggest a number that small was probably just a clerical mistake. I mean, I don't recall us putting an extra $200 so the golf course superintendent can go have a steak dinner or anything like that. So I think it was probably just a clerical mistake. Certainly we could move that $200 as part of funding for other things. But I do believe we've gone through this contract. They're not asking for an increase, and I don't think we need to belabor it over. If it was a $20,000 error, I could see maybe belaboring it and putting this on the back burner, but I think this is something we could proceed with, in my opinion, and we're already hopefully making a first payment here in just a matter of a couple of days, so I'd like to see this thing kind of proceed. Thank you.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify with Councilman Alcantara's concern. I am all for approving this to continue this contract. I just want to make sure that we're extremely careful about our numbers lining up with what we've expended in our budget. That's it. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I get, my concern is that we pay $420,000 plus out, and then for them to run the organization, and then they're responsible to buy and sell the candy and the liquor and all that and then they turn around and invoice us for that. It says we're responsible to cover all utilities. Seems to me like if you rent a place, you typically are responsible for your own utilities. We pay for the renovations. Granted, it's our land, but it just bothers me that that they end up making money and yeah, we get taxes, but it bothers me that they make money off the sales of liquor and candy and golf clubs and all that kind of stuff, and we pay for it, and we're already paying $425,000 out. That's a little concerning to me. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Are we ready to vote then? Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please, for the action memorandum number 25-004.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Graver,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay. Next is action memorandum number 25-003, authorizing the city manager to execute contract amendment number 3 with Green Garden Services for seasonal gardening and horticultural services at the Visitor Information Center Garden for 2025 in an amount not to exceed $48,540. What's the wishes of the council?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering why it doesn't specifically in our budget that was presented, we don't have a line item for this service. There was nowhere in our budget that this specific number was listed. So I'm just wondering if that is added into a big fund, and if we're paying a 5-figure amount, why that's not a separate line item in the approved budget so that we do understand clearly where that money is going.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a copy of the budget on me, but on page 16 it does say under fiscal impact, the line item there is 01-01-20-6030.
Mr. Manager.
Mr. Hanson, would you?
Welcome, Mr. Hanson.
So, under the VIC budget, that includes all of our contracts for that area, which includes the Palmer Museum of History and Art twice, and then the garden contract. So it includes all 3 of those contracts. With respect to your previous question on the golf course, I believe that it's the same situation. It's 60/30. It's for our contracts. And I think the extra $200 I put in there for fire extinguisher serving. I'll have to verify in my notes, but that was a contract we have with a company that is less than $200, so that's where we put that.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when I searched the budget in a searching entity that searches for this exact number for this horticultural service, this number does not appear in our budget anywhere. So if it is a direct line item that I looked at, it does not match this number. So again, I'm asking if anybody can answer me about why the number is not the same as what is listed in the budget.
That's a budgeting issue. All of those contracts are lumped into contractual services. And, we calculate what the cost is for the year, and then we amend what the proposed budget for 60/30 is, and that's what goes forward. As far as the narrative that the city manager may give you in his budget book, or what is ultimately in all of those line items, Gina does have a printout of all the different costs and all of the different items that goes with each specific GL code. But if you want more of an answer on that, Gina probably can enlighten you more.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you. I understand we're just approving a contract that we're just extending a contract, and I can respect that. I just think that moving on, especially in next year's budget, that these line items match these things that are being brought before us, and that they're listed separately, I guess maybe not in the contractual agreement, so that we understand where these funds are going, and maybe that even these contracts are included in our budget, so we can exactly see again what we're going to be approving and where this money's going to be going. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
If we do this, we have to be, what sort of clarity would you like? Because we have contracts with Alaska's Best Water and Coffee that we spend probably $200 a month, $2,400 a year on. Do we want to get down to that level of contracts? Or, what level would council like to see? This is a line item that says contractual services. It can be construed widely or narrowly as council would like to see. But what we're doing, we're starting to place a bigger burden on staff to break a lot of these contracts out when we can just lump them into a single line item, and then we're not going to pay any more for the contract than what you approve. But again, the budget is just a plan for the year to give us an idea of how much we're going to spend. And getting back to that.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you. Respectfully, Mr. Manager, I understand that it could take our finance director or somebody more time to list contracts, and I'm not even asking for that on behalf of the council. My statement is just that when the council is approving, when I look at this budget that we just approved, me personally, what I'm saying as a council member is that there's so much more information that could have been listed in this so that we understood where those contractual agreements went, where the money was going, and things like that. I'm not saying that I'm not going to approve this. This is an extension of a contract that we're already in, and I understand that. All I'm saying is that it's kind of crazy to me that we have these contracts coming before us and we can't even find them in a lined item in the budget that, you know, the horticultural service for this one place is $48,000, or this, you know, we have another, you know, adding 200. I mean, all I'm saying is that it would be nice to see the contracts, like for the golf course. It would have been nice to see the contract $425,000, and then we would have been able to see as a council when we were passing the budget that there was a $200 item that wasn't listed in our budget that then we could have accounted for or understood where that money was going that we were approving. I'm just asking for more clarification next year, and that's obviously something that the whole council will have to want to see in front of them. I'm just saying it's odd that those things are not listed in our budget. Thank you.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a minor point. The wording talks about gardening horticulture services at the Visitor Information Center. My assumption is that it continues on with a professional services agreement that actually includes all of the gardens and stuff around the city and the flower pots. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to vote? Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll for action memorandum number 25-003.
Councilmember Braver,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay. Next, action memorandum number 25-008, authorizing the interim city manager to sign contract amendment number 2 with the Palmer Museum of History and Art for a management services contract agreement for operation of the Visitor Information Center in the amount of $76,993 to reflect 2025 payments. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any questions of staff? Councilmember Alcantra.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's just thinking aloud here, is the actions that we just took in that contract going to change this number at all? I mean, if we took an action in the contract,
are you?
the museum contract, that was $84,000. This won't impact this at all? Okay.
No, these are separate contracts, as I understand, Mr. Manager.
This is just the slight inflation adjustment from last year. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? All right, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please, on action memorandum number 25-008.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Braver,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. And am I remembered correctly that the next one, D, was taken care of with the consent agenda? Okay, so now we are back to unfinished business. There's none, no new business. Record of items placed on the table. None? Okay. Councilmember Cooper.
Did we miss this school resource officer program?
I think it was left on the consent agenda, so it actually
All right, thank you,
happened
sorry, thank you.
way back at the beginning of the meeting. All right. Next is audience participation. We have a list here somewhere. We'll open audience participation, and I guess I will write names down. Does anyone wish to come forward? Please start with your name, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Cindy Hudgens, and I just am going to kind of continue from where I left off. But first off, there was one little thing that I missed when I was talking about how insane it was to give the borough any of our health powers. There was talk about the attorney, the borough attorney, and all of the assurances that he was giving about how this was limited and temporary and all that good stuff. Well, I kind of question the scruples of this attorney myself because of his involvement with the city. That should never have happened. So I'm wondering, can we trust anything that he says? So I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Question everything. So back to the infrastructure. The city has issues, and funds are needed. I mean, there was more money spent here with all of the overtime, I'm sure, because all of the city people had to come out and work on getting rid of this flooded water and clearing up the drains and all that. And okay, well, so they were working, except for the one that was frozen because it's too close to the surface. And it's going to cost a lot of money to fix that issue. And so then this always brings me back to this library. The extravagant expense of building this building. I don't understand why, I don't understand the importance of it seems to be more than just a library. And I don't understand that. I know there's something else behind this because it's given precedence over everything. Like our water and sewer system needs work, our infrastructure needs work. There were cuts that were originally made from the budget for our safety services. These services that I just listed, they're way more important, and I'm concerned about what $700 and some odd thousand, I don't know, was that a year payment? And okay, yes, we're assured, oh, there's money in the savings account. How long is it going to take to drain that funds to make payments on this building? Just some more things to make your mind go, ooh. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation? Please start with your name.
Mary Jo Parks. First of all, I want to thank you for supporting both the Visitor Information Center and the museum. We would be honored to have you come visit us, and we would be also honored to have you participate more in the 1935, everyone's talking about it. Just wanted to tell you a few things going to happen. B. Adler of the Valley Arts Alliance will have models with clothing from 1935. The Experimental Farm is going to be doing displays and gardening things. Some of the organizations that are working with us include Palmer Historical Society and other groups. And so we're excited about this. We hope to bring a lot of people to our community. We'll be doing fun things at Colony Days and so on. And right now, our first exhibit this year is at Vagabond Blues, we have old photos from 1935 and before and a few after. So please come join us. And again, thank you for all you do and for supporting the museum.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation? Okay, seeing no one come forward, we will close audience participation. Council member comments. Council member Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank Jude and the Public Works Department for doing all the hard work and breaking out the kayaks
Get closer to the light, yeah.
the kayaks this weekend.
Thanks.
And I also want to thank the council for all of their hard work that they've done this evening in supporting all the action memorandum stuff that we had. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also wanted to thank our lovely police department and fire department for all the work that they did during the event on Sunday. I know that they were called to a mudslide and some accidents and whatnot, so I just want to thank them for everything that they did as well for our community that day. I also would like to bring forward a concern regarding a potential violation of the City of Palmer's Code of Ethics and Conduct for elected officials committed by one of our fellow council members during a recent board meeting. In the interest of maintaining the integrity and trust of our council, I respectfully request that the council initiate an investigation into this matter to determine whether a violation has occurred. During this meeting, this council member made a series of unsubstantiated, misleading, and personally attacking statements, including but not limited to: 1, an accusation of dishonesty. This member falsely claimed that there was no police report filed and publicly accused me of lying without any basis or supporting evidence. Number 2, undermining the credibility of the City of Palmer's finances. This member stated that the city has, quote, no money, end quote. These statements were misleading and harmful to the reputation of both our city and its employees. Number 3, politicizing council decisions. This member implied that I was voting in line with specific political ideologies rather than on the merits of the issues, further politicizing our work and undermining our duty to serve in the public's interests. These actions appear to violate several key principles of our Code of Ethics, including respect for process. Council members are expected to follow the rules of order and engage in respectful, fact-based discourse. This member's actions, particularly speaking out of turn and making baseless claims, violated this principle. Respect and civility. Our code demands that we treat each other with respect and refrain from personal attacks. The comments made were completely inflammatory, disrespectful, and unbecoming of any elected official. Conduct of members. The members' conduct seems to conflict with the expectation that we avoid creating an appearance of impropriety and conduct ourselves in a manner that promotes trust in the city's government. These baseless accusations further disrupted the council's ability to focus on important city business and caused unnecessary drama within our body. Such unfounded claims only serve to undermine the professionalism of this council and hinder our ability to work collaboratively for the benefit of the City of Palmer. Further, this council member currently has an open case. While all individuals are entitled to due process, the public nature of this ongoing legal issue raises concerns about the member's ability to effectively represent the City of Palmer in an impartial and responsible manner. This situation could potentially affect the credibility and decision-making of this council member, making it imperative that we address any ethical concerns related to their conduct while in office. In addition to these matters, it is important to know that other members of council have been receiving complaints regarding this council member's behavior and things that this council member has been saying in public settings, such as bars. These reports describe comments that are disruptive and completely unprofessional, further damaging the reputation of this body and eroding public trust in our leadership. This ongoing pattern of behavior calls into question this member's fitness to serve and further highlights the need for an investigation. Moreover, during this meeting, this council member claimed that no other department in this city had a problem with the former city manager except our public safety department. This statement in and of itself is clear admission of targeted behavior against public safety department. both by the former city manager and by certain members of this council. It suggests a pattern of harassment and an intentional effort to undermine the department, which could be construed as targeted harassment. Such divisive and discriminatory actions have no place in our government, and it is imperative that we hold these involved accountable for their conduct. The council member's admission of targeted behavior further underscores the need for an investigation and a thorough examination of any potential ethical violations associated with these actions. Given the seriousness of these concerns, I am now formally requesting an investigation be initiated to determine whether this council member's actions constituted a violation of the Code of Ethics and Conduct. I ask my fellow council members to support this motion to initiate an investigation.
I would second that.
And so who would be doing this investigation?
The city attorney and the city manager.
Okay. Go ahead, Madam Attorney.
So if I understand correctly, this is a motion to task me under the Palmer City Ethics Code, the city attorney. I don't know if the city manager is included in the authority of that. I think it might just be the council can, I'm sorry, I'm pulling up our ethics code right now. I believe it says that the council can ask for the city attorney to do an analysis. One moment, please. Sorry, I need a second. Just
This right here.
Oh.
It's highlighted on the bottom for initiating investigation.
When deemed warranted, and this is the ethics code that has been voted on and approved by all of city council, it says when deemed warranted, the mayor or the majority of council may call for an investigation into alleged ethical violations. Also, should the city manager or the city attorney believe an investigation is warranted, they shall confer with the mayor or council. The mayor or council shall ask the city manager or the city attorney to investigate the allegations and report the findings. It says or. Although, I mean, we can be an and too.
Okay, I don't think there's total agreement on this, so I guess I would call for a vote of the council on this matter.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, Councilmember
Yes,
Hudson.
thank you. So then, by us having a vote, I would like to remind that when Councilmember Best brought up the OMA violations, it was only seconded by Councilmember Cooper. So then you're either now admitting that we did not follow the Code of Ethics or bringing up an investigation previously, and now we would like to follow the investigation protocol, or are you saying that it's different? We're going to treat this differently than we treated Mr. Best's OMA violation that he brought up. I mean, I'm just asking. Thank you.
I'm saying that a direction can be then seconded, and if there's not objection, can proceed forward. I'm saying that I believe there's objection or not unanimous, so I think we should call for a vote of this matter. Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as the second, I think I have to at least give a little bit of background. I mean, you gotta know that I'm good friends with the council member, used to be good friends with the council member. I don't care what is said about me individually or people individually. I mean, that's everybody's kind of political opinion. They can have that anytime they want. When somebody goes to a public event and almost like badmouths the city or says that the city is broke or starts talking about the city and other implications, that's kind of where I draw the line. I mean, people have things that happen in their private lives, and some of them become public. Obviously, when you're an elected official, they do become public, and that's just part of life. And they become public on a police beat, even if you're not an elected official. So I look at this as kind of almost like an intervention, almost like a check yourself before you wreck yourself kind of moment. And I think it needs to be investigated the same way Councilmember Tudor's thing was investigated, and we'll see where we'll see what goes forward with it. But I think it's something that is certainly a valid concern, and that's why I seconded it.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Respectfully, Councilwoman Hudson is correct. I do not believe we called for a vote with Mr. Best's request for an investigation in December. We had a second and we went with that, and even though there were objections, we went ahead with the investigation. So I don't see why we need to call for a vote at this point.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with that. What we've done in the past is have two council members have been able to direct the city manager and or the attorney to be able to go forth and prosper. And I think that's probably where we're at this point.
I'm just wondering about. There we go. Okay. So, all right, so it's been directed for the attorney to investigate and bring back results to the council. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can the city attorney read one more thing into the record?
Just, there would have been a question if it was and, the language is or the city attorney to investigate the allegation and report the findings. Which then I would do with extreme discretion and in terms of outlines and details, and then we could go into process. Understood.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully I don't lose my voice here. Yeah, I just wanted to say it's great to be back in Alaska. We got to go down to DC for the Matsu Miners. We have a really amazing team up here. It's really a privilege that we have the miners up here. When I was down there, there were a lot of people that approached Pete and some people, and they were just talking about how much of a life-changing adventure it was to be here in Palmer. They still remember that experience very fondly, even if it was over 10 years ago. So it's amazing what this town can do. And also just thank you to everybody for the help with, I'm going to call it Rain-ageddon. I'm not sure what to call it on Sunday. We had that massive rainfall. Everyone did an amazing job. Public Works, Public Safety, everybody was there. Councilman Hudson was out there helping out. And it was just a really, really amazing thing. And I'm looking forward to especially the clothing showcase from 1935. I have 3 teenagers, so I think all my clothes are for 1935, if you ask them. So that should be good. And of course, the wine walk where I get myself into trouble pretty easily is always a good time. So looking forward to that, and just thank everybody for the hard work today.
Councilmember Best.
No comment.
Okay. Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems like last weekend everyone was gone. I also was out of town with my husband. We were volunteering at an event, so I wasn't here either. But I did want to just thank Councilwoman Hudson and her husband, Andrew, and their family for being out and just cleaning drains and everything on their own time on a Sunday. I really appreciated that. I saw it on my Facebook feed. So I just want to say thank you because I really appreciate, shows that you really care for the city. And yeah, I want to thank Public Works as well and our firefighters and our police officers for working on that. And I won't say that I'm sad I missed it. So.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, first off, thank you to all the first responders and to Councilmember Hudson and her family and everybody who helped on Sunday. Yeah, it was very interesting to see all that happening from, I was in the state, but in Juneau, you might as well be out of state. So it's, it was great to see things subsided, and it wasn't a problem when I got home at 2 in the morning on Monday. Everything seemed to be okay. I do want to thank both Mr. Molesky and the mayor for kind of the education on some of the pieces of Seroma. I think it's a fantastic thing that started, you know, with ham radio operators some 45 plus years ago. As I mentioned, my daughter gets to participate and super proud and happy for that. I can state for the record, I will not be going to Japan, and I wanted to let folks know that the students go in June and the delegation goes in July. So people wouldn't be going over, you know, with their students or anything like that. It's a separate event, but I think it's a good one. You know, we did the thing for the temporary library today, and you know, obviously I'm an advocate of building a library. I think it can be a great thing for the city of Palmer, and I think our voters spoke loud and clear when they approved a $10 million bond for that library. That's why on this last piece, I take absolutely no happiness in forwarding an investigation to a fellow council member, especially a friend that I maxed out on in 2016 when he ran for State House, one of very few of his friends that did so. I have respect for the man, but I hope that he can temper issues. If everything I hear from people out there is, if 10% of it's true, it worries me deeply. And I take no happiness in it at all, but I think it's something that certainly needs to be investigated. I thank everybody for coming out tonight. I thank the museum board, Mary Jo and Pat specifically for their years of work on that. And like I said, it wouldn't exist the way it is. It wouldn't be nearly as cost effective and nearly as well run without them. So thank you, not just for being here tonight, but for all the work you're doing there. And that's about it for me, and I hope everybody has a great couple of weeks till we meet again.
I was just going to comment that I too was driving around slowly through the waters of Sunday, and it was a lot of water. But I also checked on Monday morning, and most of the streets were dry. Our Palmer wind does have some positive effects occasionally. Next, we have a couple executive sessions. So we need a motion to go into the executive session for matters of the immediate knowledge which would clearly have an adverse effect upon the finances of public entity, discussion regarding potential library settlement litigation. So we need a motion for that. And go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, move that we go into executive session after a 5-minute break.
Yes.
I just want to add that because it was passed today, the executive session, that the audio and visual will be kicking in.
Okay.
Yes? Yeah.
Second for the motion
Okay.
and the break. Thank you.
And
Mr.
and also in that meeting, in the executive session, we're going to have Mr. Manager, the attorney, and Mr. Hanson, if I'm right.
I would request of council probably to include the clerk in all executive sessions that don't include personnel, and to include, the invited guests this evening to be the clerk, the attorney, myself, Mr. Hanson, and Ms. Davis.
Ms. Davis, okay. So that we're saying that's our motion. Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, I just want to clarify for them to be included in every executive session that we're having.
No, just this particular one.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
For the this first executive session involving the library.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Is that clear then for everyone? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilman McRaver.
Yes.
Unanimous?
Okay, so we will take a break and then prepare the room to be for executive session.